we're still working, always learning.
So the next, we'll have about 15 minutes for preset questions and the 15 minutes open to the audience for open questions. Question number 1. Why do you think your parents and many Asian parents desire their children to become professionals, such as doctors and lawyers? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'll start. So, my sister's a lawyer. Her husband's a doctor. And so, they are, especially if you're coming to a new country and you don't have, you want to give your kids a basic chance at success. And these are careers that are reliable, are predictable if you succeed in them. And also, I think our communities just kind of have always placed us. We used to be engineers too.
Yeah, they're honorable professions, right? We don't want to. A lot of parents, they make such a sacrifice to come to America, and then the child becomes, oh, let's see, what would be something that you'd be so not happy about, right? A baker in a supermarket. Okay, so how about that? Let's say that. Okay, maybe you would just not have that. It wouldn't be as honorable, right? Now the issue, though, is that we can't pigeonhole our kids and always say you got to be a doctor or a lawyer. Rashaad and I built our business working with doctors and lawyers, actually, because they are precision.
And we were going to be doctors,
right.
And then we were going to be lawyers.
Yeah. So
we went somewhere else.
So there's so many things that we don't know as parents, and so I always tell Ava, if you want to do something with your life, because she's the closest one to doing anything with her life. She's 11. Make sure you have a passion for it. Let's be practical about it. How are you going to make money? Right, Ava?
And if that's being a doctor or being a lawyer, fantastic.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Not all doctors are the same.
Yeah. Actually, it was the lawyers, when we started the Maine, we were going to go to law school, the lawyers came up to us and they said, don't go to law school.
Yeah. Well, the attorneys told me, don't go to law school.
Rashaad, you told me that your first business was selling Christmas trees when you were 15 years old. What prompted you to do that? And could you tell us about your experience? How did you make it happen?
Sure. So I wanted money. So what happened, even before this, I had a paper route. When I was really young. When I was 15, I did this. I worked at Herman's. I don't know if any of you remember Herman's, but Herman's was in all of that. 16. So, I think this gets back to teaching your kids to work. And the Christmas trees was just an entrepreneurial thing. I think I sold them to Mr. Yan as well, right? Did I sell you? You bought some trees too. so it was,
false then.
And that's the thing. I loved the concept of business. I love the concept of being able to acquire goods and find a market for it. And so I found a place where you could get trees really cheap. And then I figured there was a lot of people that didn't know where that was. And so if I went around in my parents' van and sold the trees to them, we could find a market. And so, it was things like that didn't make a ton of money at that, obviously, but it was more the experience. It was more the experience of, I'm going to go out there and do something. I'm not going to just sit here and play video games. Although I did plenty of that too. Every kid does. But what excited me was going out there and building something, and building and selling and seeing where I could make money, and I do that to this day.
He's also being a little bit shy because he's also leaving out the fact that he realized he couldn't sell that many trees just by himself. So he hired his 2 sisters to sell trees in other locations, and he gave them a portion of the profits. So he was always forward-thinking, always business-minded. So.
But remember, that started because my parents told me I had an opinion. I could think. I could come up with things. If they always told me what I needed to do, I would have thought I couldn't do that.
And what experience as a teenager did you have that helped to define your work ethic and more entrepreneurial spirit as an adult?
I had a really strong work ethic instilled in me as a young kid. There was manual labor at home, right? Cleaning, cooking, all that stuff, vacuuming. Outside of that, my mom worked right on the edge of Chinatown in Soho, and the business that her that she worked with, there was a poultry market, like actually one of those old school Chinatown slaughterhouses, right next door, and I worked as a cashier there when I was Ava's age. And so I used to do that in the summers as my mom was next door. And during that time, I definitely brushed up on my Cantonese and Toy Sunese because I had to do all the numbers. But I always had a strong work ethic. My parents never told me that I could have idle hands. I always had to be doing something. If I wasn't reading, if I wasn't studying, I had to be working in some way. And actually, it didn't even have to be for money. It was just to learn how to work, learn how to have a supervisor, learn how to be accountable, learn how to have something to produce and hand in. All of that was more than the money because my parents were wonderful providers. And then I got a work permit when I first possibly could, when I was like, I think you're allowed to do it at 14 or 15. And so then I worked in a kennel because I like dogs.
I can tell you, when we hire people and we see that they work at a young age like this, it jumps out. I mean, way more than a 3.6 to a 3.8 GPA. That's like a rounding error. But if we see that they always knew how to, pound the pavement, show up, produce, this is somebody who's going to be really good.
Those were valuable lessons back then, and I liked not having the stress of having to actually, contribute financially. That was more just for life experience. And so I did hold a number of jobs from the time I was 14 until the time I started my own company. Even in the summers, I would temp as an administrative assistant, or I'd volunteer at hospitals. Always moving, always just trying to gain exposure to the community.
How did domain computer services not only survive, but thrive, especially when one-third of small businesses fail within the first 3 years? And what happened during the dot-com bubble and the subsequent burst of the bubble? Did you suffer from recession in 2002, 2003?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, and we hear this stat all the time about how many businesses crash, and once you've made it past 5 years, I think we should go. So, number one is grit. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to have grit. Everything, you're going to lose deals. There was periods of time when Domain was first starting that when you're first in college, you get the credit cards in the dining hall. They all sign you up for the credit cards. I would swipe my own credit card in Domain's credit card machine to get money to be able to pay the bill. So it's not all rosy-dozy, we stepped into a pile of $1 million on day one. It doesn't work that way. It took a while. But it takes grit. It takes determination to know, you know what, this is a good idea. It's moving in the right direction. If I keep pushing at this, I can do this. I can push. And the other good thing and smart thing, and this is maybe just luck, was during the downturn of the recession, and now we've gone through 2 recessions. There's the dot-com, and we've now gone through the 2008, 2009 too. It's good to have lawyers as your clients because they're recession.
There's always someone to sue.
Bankruptcy lawyers do really well during recessions.
Yeah. So we have all different kinds of jobs. So
diversify your risk.
You're covered.
Yeah.
Next question. You have masters of your own destinies. Share what your most adrenaline crunch steps were.
So I don't want to say any one particular thing is the biggest triumph. The biggest triumph definitively is our kids. If we can raise them to be kind, generous, successful, to at some point be talking to a whole bunch of people, we would have won the lottery. Right? By all means, that is one. It's not any one particular business aspect. I'd say missteps. Missteps definitely earlier on in our career. It was that same ego that I was talking about before. And the flip side of that is you think you can do everything with just muscle and feel yourself, and so you don't delegate. So for me, my biggest misstep was.
We had a big problem with micromanagement. We're both perfectionists. We both have a little bit of OCD when it comes to the way things are done. And so we actually kind of handcuffed ourselves and didn't grow as quickly as we could have because we didn't delegate. So if we could do it again, probably just kind of get ourselves.
And you know, the other interesting thing is from a business point of view, you know, going out and being recognized in the business community, the EQ piece is incredibly valuable. If you're just toiling away kind of behind the scenes and you're not comfortable going out and networking and things along those lines, it's very, very difficult to you know, really get larger and get recognized on a broader scene.
What is the career advice to the current middle school and high school students, given the belief that AI may replace a lot of human jobs within the next year?
So Ava, what website did I tell you to go to this morning? Codestudio.org. Because she's already run out of all the stuff in her own grade level, and this is something that she likes to. So this is a big reason why we did the Tech Academy as well, because the skills gap. So I think for the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to need a lot of technology jobs. There's no doubt about that. But then, yeah, 20 years out, I think there's going to be a lot of jobs. Which, by the way, I'm sad to say, a lot of medical jobs, for example, will be replaced. That content that's in their heads right now, it's going to be in computers. It's already kind of on WebMD. It's just a matter of so there's, you know, I'm not saying doctors are going away. There's still going to be room for doctors, but to your point, a lot of the jobs are changing, and so computers can replace a lot of things. So at least until between now and then, I mean, we're telling our kids to be developers, but you know, that doesn't mean that that's the only road to success. But the important thing is understanding where we are right now and what is coming down the pipe. And I know that developers, really good developers, cost us a ton, way more than doctors and lawyers do. And so we know that that's a skill that if they can learn how to do that, they'll be able to write their own ticket. So that's what we're doing. We're encouraging them to. Unfortunately, the U.S. education system right now is not geared towards that. It's a big problem, but there's a lot of folks in our industry that are trying to change that. I mean, we're trying to get more technology skills, more computer science skills in schools and things along those lines. Right now, we don't have a lot of that until you finish college.
As you are raising your own children, what are the positive parenting practices you follow in terms of education philosophy and the ways of communication? What are the negatives that you have abandoned?
So we send our kids to Chapin School in Princeton, and one of the things that I think about a lot is something called the growth mindset. And it's actually very opposite of what Asian parents do. So if
The traditional
Asian parents do. So for instance, if a child brings home a C, like a 78, most of the traditional old school Asian parents would say, what happened to those other points? How come you didn't get a 99 or 100? And where are those bonus points? The growth mindset is completely opposite. And this is something that really keeps me centered with the kids. You can Google it. Growth mindset is a TED Talk.
Yeah.
Right? So I should have put the link up there, but I can certainly provide it. What that is it considers any type of mistake as a chance to grow. It's an opportunity not to, you know, label yourself as someone who's just not good at geometry, for instance. It allows you to reframe all these mistakes as a way to grow, to learn, to absorb new things. The second that you think that you know it all and that you're not able to learn it all is when you cut your growth completely. So I always tell Ava and Max, even though he's in kindergarten, that any mistakes you make, it doesn't define you. It only defines you if you let it define you. So figure out what you did wrong, how you can improve, learn how to repeat it, and move on. So that's one really big positive, not only for the kids, but also for me as a parent. If I make a mistake, if I snap at them, we're all human, we all have things to do. I always try to step back and say, you know what, I can't do on that one mistake I made today. I'm gonna start new from this point on, and that really helps. Negatives we gave up, I think that was kind of all the
I think the negative is just making sure that we're not just scolding them based based
Right.
on the results. That growth mindset literally teaches the kids, your brain can grow. It's not fixed. Fixed mindset is, this is what you can learn, and I just can't learn it. No, if you apply yourself, the world is your oyster. And it kind of goes back to the earlier points too. You can do anything. You can't do it right now. It might take a little while. You need to practice. You need to work on it. But you can do anything. And so what are you going to be excited to do? For right now, it's going to be this test. But you need to work on it. But the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. It's Carol Dweck is the person who's kind of behind the growth mindset. But it's really guided us well.
As grandparents, we are always trying to protect our families from mistakes that will affect our children's long-term future. So for example, we are afraid of not pushing our kids too hard enough so that they may not fully achieve their potential, so that they may not go to Ivy League schools, so that they may not get good jobs, so that they may not make a living, so they may not have a happy life. Do your parents have this fear, and do you have this fear?
Don't we all have our fears, right?
I'm sure they had their fears when we said we're not going to medical school and said we're not going to.
Not majoring in biology, not becoming a doctor, right?
And I think that's reasonable. And I think if my kids come to me and say they want to do something that I feel like is not going to make them happy later on in life, it's my job to tell them, look, this may not be the wisest. It might be your passion, but let's see if we can kind of guide your passion in a direction where you can pay the bills too.
Right. You have to be practical about it.
Yeah. So all of this is good, or potentially good, as long as it's done in a healthy way. Ivy League schools are great. If your kids can get into Ivy League school, it'll help them get a leg up. But that can't be the be-all end-all. It can't be. The vast majority of the most successful people I know, some of them went to Ivy League schools, most of them didn't. Just because most people don't go to Ivy League schools. So the reality is, these are indicators. You do need to push them. It comes back to the bicycle. You don't just hold on to the seat and tell them, go Ivy, go this. They're not going to learn how to do anything. You have to figure out what that right distance is. How long do you run until you go? And for all of us who've taught a kid how to ride a bike, you know how difficult that is. There's no exact science. It's not like 20 steps and that's what you need. No, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's a lot longer. So you have to talk to your kid. You have to figure out what they want. And then, push them towards indicators of success, but you have to make sure that they find their own voice as well.
And have a great. Very important.
Absolutely.
So with that, we'll open questions to the audience.
Any questions
Okay.
for our parents?
Any questions for the kids?
So actually, I have a question. For the parents. When we said we were going to do domain way back when, now it was at college, but there was the concern of going down the traditional like law school or medical school or whatever and doing that. How nervous were you?
When I was growing up, I was nervous all the time.
That's
More than
Yeah. Okay. So there's no right answer. Yeah.
Mom, Dad? Is it all over?
So like you guys created very successful enterprises and he was an example of the success that we did. It looks like you didn't really get a computer science major, right? So you didn't apply for that major. Do you feel the major is important for the kids or it doesn't really matter what they want to learn in college? You just have the ability of learning whatever.
That's a good question. That's a great question.
Would you imagine you could do even better if you had a computer science major in college or maybe master or PhD? Would that really help?
I think it's all, thank you for that, that's a very good question. I think about that a lot too with the kids, right? If I can help the kids define what they are passionate about, they can just major in it and learn how to make tons of money, right? Be really successful and happy. At that time, it was just the time. There was actually no computer science majors at that time because what Rashaad and I
was programming.
yeah,
It's
that
just
was
programming,
programming.
yeah.
What Rashaad and I ultimately went into was being developed at that time in the workforce. It was on the
Because what
job, it was all
domain does
experiential
is not
learning.
programming. So
Yeah,
domain does
so,
not.
however, I will tell you, after having hired multitudes of people, that college degrees for us are indicators of people who will be successful in the workplace. So it's not necessarily what college they went to, but how well they did, what that EQ looks like. When going to a college then proves to us that they are accountable people who are used to deadlines, who are used to delivering, and were able to sustain 4 years of that rigorous work. It helps now, obviously, to have those degrees in the areas that we hire in, right? Because they are available. But back then, I think that was, for me personally, being an English major and learning the skills that I did for my parents, I was able to apply what I learned to my professional career. So English was good in the sense that it helped me communicate, and it helped me analyze all the any types of situations, gave me a leg up in that way. So in that case, I probably wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, so, I'm a big believer in the liberal arts education to create that well-rounded ability. I don't think that we would have had the same level of success, believe it or not, if we had been computer science back then. Just because, well, number one, back then it was only programming and we don't do programming. But the computer science degree, if I wanted to become a developer and I wanted to, for example, get hired by Google and be a developer, for sure, I need a computer science degree. And the better school I get it from, the better, the higher likelihood. But as far as what my passion was not programming. My passion was building businesses and a technology business. And being exposed to philosophy, being exposed to debate, being exposed to writing skills, those actually have served me a lot more than computer science. Now, but that's just my path. So if your child, as I told you, I want them to do computer science because I feel like that the high likelihood of success is by going on a path that has options at the end of it. And even if you don't become an entrepreneur or whatever, you're going to have a tangible skill that somebody's willing to pay you for. And I think that's why medicine and engineering and law are so attractive, because you can actually not have a lot of other things going on and somebody's still willing to pay you because you have a raw skill. So I think, to your point, the master's, the PhD, if you feel like that's the track they want to go on, obviously, whether it's engineering, whether it's pharmaceuticals, you're going to have more opportunities by just having those degrees, but they can't be the be-all, end-all. As the story, as I told you with my sister, she's in a pharmaceutical company. The vast majority of the people around her have PhDs and MDs, but she is getting promoted when they aren't. Now, I'm not saying that it's not helpful to have those degrees. Obviously, it is helpful to have those degrees, but it can't be the be-all, end-all. That's our
What is one area that you feel this Westminster Platesboro system did not adequately prepare you for?
So remember, we're from a long time ago.
Yeah,
now.
this is a long time.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was, what is one area where you think the West Windsor Plainsboro school system did not adequately prepare you for, right? I'll be frank with you. I think the open space in the school was kind of weird. So
Yeah,
to be able to focus was, they still have that, right? In the South, it's still
In
open
South,
space.
they have no walls.
Yeah.
Still
They
no
have
walls.
in
South
high
has
school,
no
South?
walls,
Yeah.
North has the walls.
Yeah, South has no wall. So I would say that it was very different from the rest of it. See, I think the school is important to prepare you for what the rest of the world's going to look like. And the rest of the world doesn't look like South. Actually, let me take that back. In these new workspaces, where they're all open workspaces, you do have that, so you do have to be able to focus, even though there's 100 things going on. But yeah, nothing would stand out. I think I love the fact that we were surrounded by incredible. When we interview people, believe it or not, my mindset of my West Windsor experience is always top of mind. I ask all of the applicants, tell me about high school. Tell me about you in relation to your peers. What were your peers like? And West Windsor is one of those unique environments where people will go and they will say high school was as rigorous, or not, maybe not rigorous from an academic point of view, but rigorous as far as the peers I was surrounded by, as anywhere else. And so I think that was the biggest opportunity for me. And we had plenty of opportunity back then to take AP courses. I mean, if you wanted it, there was nothing that you couldn't get access to.
And definitely for the rigor, because the studies were quite, at that time, our homework was not easy. I mean, it took a long time. And when you go to college, a lot of the people that I went to college with that weren't from West Windsor were overwhelmed by the workload. With the amount that you had to read every night, with all of the different projects, the essays, the finals, the midterms. I was actually okay with it. And that was because West Windsor Plainsboro was so competitive and the curriculum was very demanding. And I understand it's even more so now, so yeah.
Thank you. How about empathy?
Yeah.
At that time it was different.
Peer groups, did it help develop empathy?
Yeah, back then we didn't have as many with peer groups. I mean, there were peer groups back then, but it wasn't as put out. I'm not too familiar with the current curriculum. I can tell you about what we've seen in other areas. So as Michelle mentioned, our kids go to Chapin right now. And so we live in Monroe, and Monroe's school system is not as competitive as West Windsor's, but half the people in Chapin, I don't know if you guys know where Chapin's right in Princeton, right over. Half the people in Chapin, their kids are from West Windsor. What is that? Everyone's moving to West Windsor to get the best school, and now these people are paying the property taxes and sending their kids out. Why is that? So now, is it because West Windsor doesn't do some of these more well-rounded aspects, like empathy? I don't know. I can't speak to that because I'm not necessarily there. But I can tell you, for example, with Chapin, we loved it. Meaning, the core of the human is incredibly important. If it were up to me, I think empathy, civic duty should be part of every high school curriculum, not just these other things. We believe that's a big part of what we do at home. But I love the question because if it's not in the current curriculum, I believe it should be in every high school student for the well-rounded child. Thank you for that. That was good.